I'm excited for you guys to work on this particular project. This is the magazine project. This represents the first piece in the college portfolio. For the magazine cover, we'll be using Photoshop. Now, I know a lot of you have not really read a lot of magazines. In fact, it's definitely an industry that a lot of people are not really supporting a huge amount. However, you still find magazines everywhere, and I love the design and layout of a lot of magazines. This is an example of a rack at a grocery store showing off kind of the standard magazines. We'll start to break apart what the details and stuff are, but these are not necessarily the magazines that we're looking to design. There's nothing inherently wrong with the way that they're designed. There is definitely a decent amount of graphic design that goes into working with this, being able to get text to look good, be able to have images cropped in a certain way. But what you'll find is magazines like this, that are the most common magazines, are not what it is that the college is looking for, nor is it going to really show off your really heavy duty design skills. In these, the primary focus is the photo, and that doesn't show off your design skills. That's just the skills of the photographer. Same kind of thing here. Now, there is a decent amount of topography going on, and there's some design skills that are happening. This was not just thrown together. But looking at this, the primary focus is just a single image. And that single image isn't showing off any photoshopping skills, which is what we're really looking for in this particular project, along with good topography skills. So the idea is that sometimes less is actually more. So we're going to be looking at ways to trim down the amount of content to be able to have something that's visually appealing, like this, or like this. Even this had some photoshopping work done. I love the double take you have to do on this one. The use of color, splitting the image, reversing it. And really some of the really cool things are, look at the topography at the top, the fisheye, the curl of where the tittle, that's the little dot, one of my favorite topography terms, tittle, the curvature that's happening there, as well as a little hook that's happening there. There's some really interesting things going on here, even though it's in a language I don't understand. I believe it's French, but it's still, from a graphic perspective, really beautiful. Same kind of thing here. There was definitely some Photoshop work that had to be done to be able to make it look like sand was pouring out of a water faucet, as well as being able to mask the top portion of this thing off. Other things like this, to even stuff like that. Definitely heavy duty photoshopping that was going on. Or at least I assume photoshopping was going on. I don't know personally, Pete Davidson, but it definitely looks like Photoshop to me. The cover itself is going to be made of multiple components, and I'm going to record shorter videos that explain more details and give you some hints and tips on how best to approach each one of these. But I do want to get into some of the things with the masthead, as well as just point out and slowly introduce you to some of these other vocabulary terms. So to begin with, looking at this magazine. Now, this is just a sample magazine. You'll notice that it doesn't actually have real words and stuff in here. This was just a demo image that I found online. And even with this demo image, there's a few things that I don't like. Like, I don't like that they're using so many fonts here, that the font size is changing pretty significantly. So don't use these pieces as examples of good design that I'm going to be pushing for. This is really more to show off some of the vocabulary. So some of the standard things that you'll find in magazines, you won't find this in every magazine, but some of the standard things that you'll find is some form of a dominant image. Now, this image itself already breaks with what I talked about earlier about the college not wanting you to have just a photograph by itself. But again, the idea is they did have to do some masking up here in the headline. You've got the volume, that's how many years the thing's been out, what issue number it is for the year, the date, the masthead, which is the title of the magazine. They have what's known as the magazine deck, also referred to as a slogan or a tagline that further explains what this magazine's about. You have your lead article, and then its subheading. You have your supporting cover lines or additional articles that are in the magazine. Then you have your barcode. It's not the prettiest thing ever, but from a sales standpoint, you'll definitely see that. When you start to look for your own images online, a lot of those images don't have a barcode on there for the magazine cover, mostly because they're digital versions of the magazine that you don't scan. There's also the price, There might be a website link that's on there. So those are the standard pieces. But the first thing we're going to start with is dealing with the masthead. With the masthead, the project requires that you do some form of digital manipulation. Now, the original thing says we need to use Illustrator for the masthead, and we will come back to this before submitting it to the college. But this masthead, for now, we're going to use just exclusively in Photoshop. So let me show you some examples. These are all mastheads. The masthead is prominently at the top of the image or of the magazine because they're oftentimes stacked in front of each other where only that top portion is showing. So you want to make sure that from a distance, you're going to be able to see and clearly read that magazine based on just that masthead. You'll notice the masthead also frequently has the magazine deck or slogan right up next to it, up close. Some of them don't have it, some of them do. For yours, we're going to definitely make sure that it has one. So as far as the cover part with the masthead is concerned, it really is one of the most important pieces you need to have on there. You're going to be coming up with a name for your magazine that should not be based on an existing magazine, or at least an existing well-known magazine. You need to have modified those letters somehow, and I'll show you in a future video ways that you may go about making those modifications. And you're going to be coming up with 4, 5, 6 different variations of that masthead. And in a future video, I will show you what I mean with that. But as far as showing another example, this is a magazine for Mexican art that I absolutely love. It unfortunately went under back in 2015, but I loved the variety of artwork and quality of design that they brought to their magazine. You'll notice that the name of the magazine is right here, and that's the symbol that they created to represent their magazine. And even from issue to issue, the thing would change. It would get smaller, the color would change, and that's fine from a branding perspective. But once you see all of these together, you definitely recognize that's all from the same place. Now, as far as the process of doing this, we are going to focus first on inspiration, planning, and then we'll get into the building part. So once again, with the inspiration, we're going to start first by creating a Pinterest board. The Pinterest board is going to be a magazine cover. You're going to name it magazine cover, and you're going to find 15 to 20 different magazine covers. You're also going to be pinning 4 to 5 screenshots of mastheads, but that will come in the video that I recorded to explain the planning part. So don't worry about that part yet. You're not going to record a screencast yet. You are going to record a screencast today, but usually we record it right after you finish the Pinterest board. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to jump straight into the planning part today as well. So you're going to start by filling out a planning sheet. Then you'll record the screencast. The reason for that is I want you to talk about your Pinterest board and your planning sheet all at the same time. So rather than giving me 2 screencasts, you're going to give me 1 screencast that talks about both. And then you'll begin searching for images to possibly use for your cover. So as far as the Google Doc planning sheet is concerned, I have a video recorded, short one, that explains what to put in each piece and what I'm looking for. But essentially it's listing off your interests, what your magazine topics could be, your target audience, possible mastheads, possible magazine names, possible image ideas, possible article ideas, and possible things you could do in Photoshop to enhance the image of the cover. All of that will be explained in detail in the video specific for the Google Doc planning sheet. After you have the Pinterest board and the planning sheet done, that's when you'll record the screencast. 4 to 7 minute screencast showing off your covers, specifically what kind of Photoshop work you think that went into it, the topic that you decided to use, and you'll go over the details, not every single piece, but you'll go over the details of your planning sheet, specifically telling me name of the magazine, what images you think you may want to use, what the article names are going to be, and what Photoshopping you think you may need to do. And you'll turn in that screencast link to Canvas. So you're turning in 2 things today. You're turning in the planning sheet. Why that's going there. You're turning in the planning sheet and you're turning in the screencast link that talks about your board and your planning sheet. Make sure that you do not set either of those to private so that I'll be able to actually view them. Let me exit out of here, and let me go back to the home page. I have shorter videos specific to each one of those pieces. So I highly recommend when you come in here for the modules that when you look at the module for the day, that you start first with the magazine cover steps. This is the broad overview of all of the stuff that you're going to do. It has links to possible sites to choose from. It's got a video for how to build your Pinterest board. It has completing the video, the planning sheet, and a video that for some reason isn't linked right now. I'll make sure I have that linked by the time you're in class. It has a video on how to do the masthead. It has a link here for the planning sheet on how to turn that in. So when you actually click on that, it also has the link to the planning sheet. So it's in multiple spots. Then I've got a video instructions on how to do the screencast. You'll end by building your magazine cover folder and starting to download photos. So big picture, it's back here. You're going to be downloading the planning sheet and turning it in, building your Pinterest board, and then doing a screencast that shows off your Pinterest board and explains all of your planning sheet answers. And you'll submit the screencast here. We'll talk more about the Adobe Max plan in a different video.